Well, hey guys, thanks for joining this episode of the Union Podcast. I've got my usual cast of characters, John and Chris. Hey guys, how are you?
How's it going, Scott?
It's going well. I'm really excited to talk about the Gen AI divide. So we found this MIT report recently. If you've seen it online, please give it a read. And we wanted to provide some feedback on the report. We were really excited to see this because it validates a lot of things that we were saying. I'll put a link into the post, obviously, so you can grab the report. But the state of AI in business in 2025. So MIT surveyed 350 enterprise executives from across all industries, and they asked a standard set of questions. The questions are in the back of the report, but we really wanted to give our view on one, how people are trying to use AI, and then two, the problems that they're having, where the ROI is, and where the opportunity exists. So one of the big themes, Chris, that I saw that I thought was interesting is the memory aspect. So there's in the report, they talked about, they interviewed people that use the public Gen AI services, Gemini and ChatGPT, things like that, Copilot. And they said people are having great success with that, but like that next level of knowledge or memory, because they don't remember what's happened. And there's a big opportunity to, if you could have these services understand what happened yesterday, it seems more helpful. And that came out. Did you get the same?
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting because first off, they talked about memory and not enough memory. And then what's interesting is normally these type articles are strictly very technical. Like, well, the tokens for the Gemini input buffer are larger than, Claude, but OpenAI has the largest output buffers around, and people go completely technical and lose sight of what business needs. So I thought this was super interesting because they were bringing how does business need to adopt this and what's the problem business is trying to solve? They don't care about tokens and buffers. And if you think I'm using Copilots, I mentioned Copilot and Claude, things, ChatGPT directly, they're providing the information and then asking a question about it, right? So they really want enterprise understanding. We call it document understanding, right? They want that, but what they're doing is they're actually just saying, here's one row of data that I will find in my ERP. This is this information about a specific customer, a specific opportunity. Now, give me an email, tell me something about this. I have a query about this. So what they're trying to do is get enterprise knowledge, but what they're actually doing is saying, here's just a single row of data I found out of the ERP, because they're trying to shove it into the buffer. And they're the people who are having to think through, okay, I have to find the right information so I can prompt it with this information to get the response back. And of course, there's always the big fear of, is the LLM training on my data? Is it learning my company secrets? And so that's where the shadow IT mentions in there. But the neat part is they're aligning to what we would actually call document understanding. You want your memory of the LLM not to be the technical bits. You want it to be the purvey of all the knowledge it has. Does it have the meeting notes? Does it have what we talked about with a customer on a sales call? Does it have the pricing and the feature sheets? Does it have all the enterprise knowledge there? So when you ask the question, the responsibility of the software, so stuff wrapping the LLM, is to find the answers across multiple locations and give an answer back. Now, we found this as a great start for things like HR documents because they don't change very often. But at the enterprise level, you've always got another sales meeting. You're always changing strategies. So you need to actually continuously give more information to it so that memory is actually what's happened today, along with yesterday and the last 3 weeks in the enterprise. And then sometimes, yeah, John?
Oh, I was just gonna say that you're laying out a very interesting framework where the personal use of a Gen AI tool on a website tends to be relatively small scoped and therefore tends to be relatively successful. And of course, as you say, document understanding and a lot of other things we do all lead up to this notion of Krista enterprise understanding. And that's what it takes to actually do AI memory at an enterprise scale. So in a personal scale, it's actually fairly successful. But at an enterprise scope and scale, it is unsuccessful because you're not going to have a single prompt accomplish what you can at an enterprise scope, but you can often at an individual scope. That's actually a really interesting point. And that's why maybe this whole dichotomy is, why am I so excited about ChatGPT when I use it personally? And then I can't get, 5% of these projects are succeeding? Why am I nearly 100% happy with it when I'm using it personally? And I'm nearly 0% happy with it when I'm using it in my company? That might be the very most simple way to describe it, is that the scope of what it's capable of and the scale that it's capable of is just insufficient, at least how it's currently being done, right? Where we're faced with lots of wrappers and science projects, also very heavily referenced. But anyway, really interesting framework for maybe trying to describe what is I think it's a big debate. Like, wait, how are these things so good? But every time I try to deploy them in a meaningful way, I'm so unsatisfied.
Yep. Well, and the other thing we found, obviously, through our experience of getting customers into production and outrageously successful, is that they don't have all the answers. They don't have all their documents. So we do deploy what we would call a human in the loop, send a question that has a low confidence of answer to a subject matter expert. The subject matter expert says, I can answer this, and yes, add it to the enterprise knowledge, or no, don't. It's actually something very specific, maybe a sensitive HR thing. But it has to grow not only through recording of data that's put out in SharePoint and things like that. Sometimes it's humans actually have to give an answer, and it has to be part of that new memory. So I thought was interesting because it was very much business focused. What does memory mean in business? What does it mean to get an answer? Not, as you mentioned, personal use or the IT bit fiddling of how many tokens do I have and what's the buffer size and all
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So Scott, go ahead, Scott.
I was just gonna say the personal use, I think, would vary quite a bit too, right? Because some people are gonna be better at prompting, some better at using the tools, but that doesn't translate across people in a workflow, right? So
Yep.
the trying it and being successful on a personal level is great. That's not gonna be consistent, but then the workflow aspect, and that came out of the report, is like, "Hey, this is great, but everything else is hard, right? Because I can't you were talking, Chris, about the documents and integration. They call out in the report, that's all the hard stuff.
Oh,
Well,
for
there's a
sure.
lot to it, right? There's a lot to it. And a lot of the platforms that are being built internally are essentially, let's throw a bunch of tools together. Let's put a wrapper of a Gen AI thing around it. And even it's called that in the report. And then let's take that as this is our AI platform. And by the way, if you don't step up your level of human workflow integration and scale in very interesting ways, you are not going to exceed your current pace, right? So adding AI to something that is already kind of broken down and going slow doesn't speed it up necessarily. So we a lot of the really good solid advice in the report was, look, you have to think about this that way. Um, and most, I think, of the comments, these were executives at companies building and deploying AI into their own organizations, right? This is not a vendor talking. Most of the comments made were actually kind of challenging most vendors. They were quite encouraging to us, but I think most vendors would actually sort of try to dodge a lot of these comments, right? The one that is most encouraging to us, as I said, most of the comments is this notion of internally built platforms are failing twice as often as those that are being used from external sources. So that means your project, if you think you're going to pull off building an AI platform and then delivering that project on top of it, your success rate is half, right? And that really stands to reason, frankly. If you can't get the scale of hundreds and at some point, for us at least, thousands of customers that are sharing the investment in all of the work that goes into that stuff, you're dividing it by one. It's just your company that is capable of using it. You can never invest at the level that a third party can. And the stretching and the standardization and the quality level and all of that stuff. What makes you special is a lot. And we can't build that. And we can't give you to that from an external point of view, providing it in. There's plenty to build on and with a platform. Don't try to build one, right? You aren't going to write a database. You're going to go Mongo or Oracle or Postgres. You're not going to build middleware, right? You're going to go RESTful services, and you're going to go, don't go build an AI platform. But leverage one, use one, make it specially aware of what you know, and you'll be in really great shape. And that is an accelerator, right? Because the whole one-off, everything's on its own, everything has its own tech stack. That's just more the stuff we know, just makes things harder and harder. So a platform for AI is a good thing, but trying to assemble a bunch of stuff from external sources and internal building a bunch of stuff, those things, you know, we've been seeing a version of that try to play out and fail for decades already, right? So I think that there's yet another learning experience there, but that's not surprising.
Yeah. One thing that I really enjoyed is they talked about trying to shut down shadow IT. And it's like, well, that's because you're doing the wrong thing. You're trying to make technical people do all the work who don't understand the business. But our idea is let's lower the technical bar, give them a platform so shadow IT can use the AI platform. Make it easy so shadow IT can connect to emails and read them or connect to SharePoint. So I thought it's interesting. They were downplaying shadow IT, but in reality, if shadow IT is by definition, Gartner's definition, they are the business people. They understand what they want to do. Enable them, empower them, don't shut them down.
Yeah, 90% of the people that answered the report are using the, Gen AI services. I guarantee you that wasn't provisioned by IT.
Right, right. So there is an interesting dichotomy there because we are very much opposed to shadow IT as a IT's not involved, and now you want to connect to their systems and do whatever it is that you just decide, and you're uns, you know, un, not necessarily bad, but un-IT educated, not aware of InfoSec, not understanding enterprise data access principles, is now about to connect to the CRM and do just whatever, right? That that's just a bad idea. It's just a bad idea. So the notion of shadow IT as IT provides the ability to self-service is a fantastic model. And that's really where Chris is going. And it's actually a really powerful thing. In the time we have, we might have to, one of these other, I think, super important themes in the document. I do hope everyone, as Scott mentioned, do hope you read this, because we really hope that you recognize there are some really clear themes in here that we've talked about quite a bit. Yes. And I think it's just the learning of what it's going to take to be successful with this, right? We could describe this as oh my gosh, vindication for Krista and our approach and all that stuff. That's all great. But it's really just, wait a minute. When we settle into how we get good at doing this, here is some early indication about what that looks like, right? And that's powerful, I think. But one of those last super important aspects of this whole report, and the theme that kept coming out, was the AI doesn't get smarter. It doesn't learn as I use it. And here's the thing that, again, I hate to, I am not trying to bash other vendors, but I haven't heard one yet that says their AI is not learning. But I'm telling you, all of these wrapper style platforms that are purely Gen AI based, there isn't an intrinsic learning capability. You don't have that. There's such crude mechanisms in place to try to do that I'm telling you, they will not scale. And that's another difference between, I can get it to work in a very small scale or little AI memory, if you will. And then as soon as I try to get bigger with it, it fails. Those are not going to work, right? But what we've got to do is recognize that AI wasn't invented in 2023. There isn't just one style of AI. So yes, you can prompt a Gen AI model and get it to classify an email as one of 2 or 3 different types. But it is not going to be terribly accurate. It is not going to get better even when you correct it. And as soon as you get to hundreds of types or thousands of emails a day or an hour even that you're trying to classify, you're going to find it's a very expensive and challenging and slow proposition. Classifier technology has been around forever, and it has benefited from the same GPU bumps that GenAI has, and classifier technology does have the ability to retrain. It does have the ability to repair its model. It can even tell you, which a GenAI model will never be able to, where it is less or more likely to have confidence problems and be less accurate or more accurate. So you can actually know when you do trust the answer and when you can't trust the answer. GenAI has nothing like that. And most every one of our use cases where we're generating tons of real ROI, we have to apply classifier technology. And by the way, what that is it's as much as yes or no, right? It's, is it an A or a B or a C type? Is it the email example that I gave? It's countless other use cases where we see the world saying, all right, I've only got one hammer, so I'm going to hit every single thing that I can't do with a regular old procedure in Python. I'm going to hit it with a GenAI hammer. And that just isn't going to work. And so these projects, when you demo them, either it's a vendor or an internal customer or a vendor like the internal IT group or something that says, hey, we can figure this out. We got this one thing and it works sometimes and we'll make it better. It'll learn. How? How? If it's GenAI models, no. And the next, by the way, the next GenAI model generation, the GPT-6, it isn't going to be any smarter about you, right? It may do great on PhD exams, but does it really understand how you apply the jargon in your business and your policies and your sensitivity to customers the way that you actually do? No. So it's got to learn that. And that's why we go back to the beginning and what Chris said. AI's memory needs to be an enterprise-wide understanding of you. So a siloed implementation strategy of give one tool this set of data and give one tool this set of data and have 16 different vendors who do some AI work for me that you can't bring together is not expanding AI memory. That's actually fragmenting AI memory. And that's a real challenge, right? So I think all of these things sort of play together. When you think about the memory aspect, the workflow aspect, which is where internal IT and the business people are extremely valuable, and this whole idea of embrace all of AI's capabilities, I think you could start to see how we're really excited about the report because it really does highlight some of these things. We say, hey, these are the symptoms of going the wrong way, right? And the symptoms of going the right way would obviously be the opposite of that.
Yeah, kind of in the last half of the report where they're talking about the barriers to workflow integration. I mean, it exactly calls out what you're talking about. Hey, it breaks in the edge cases. I can't customize it to my workflow. It's too much context, manual context, right? I got to have a big prompt and give it all this data before I even start working with it. And then it doesn't learn from that whole interaction. So, like all of those problems, and then the next question, what the answer is, I would just rather give this to a person to do, right? Because it's just I can't figure it out. So let me just find somebody to do it. I mean, it's completely opposite, right? Because they are using, you know, they're using the hammer to try to do math problems, right? I love it when I see people online. They're like, "Oh, I tried this math problem in ChatGPT and it got it wrong." I'm like, "Well, of course it did, right?" Um, but I also thought what was interesting of who they surveyed, right? Because the big enterprise pilot to production results were very different from the smaller, more nimble mid-market businesses. Like they were twice as successful, right? Because they tried probably maybe they tried boring, operationally based use cases versus, the enterprises, it just takes too long to do anything. So I thought that was interesting, like the trial rates, right? If I can shrink my pilot window and try many things, those were more successful. And then obviously the mid-market businesses, they're not going to try and build their own platform. So maybe, those two things in combination made a maybe that made them better. I would really like to know, like, who exactly they surveyed because I think, a CEO that may be sales minded would look at top line ROI and maybe like a operationally focused CEO, maybe would look at bottom line maybe. I don't that's just a guess, but I'd like to
Mm,
know that.
mm. What does come out, and in the point that you made is that you want AI not for the sake of AI. You want AI for ROI, right? And if you're not seeking that, and if the pilot isn't a step toward proving that, then it's science project. And it's really hard to get those funded beyond a handful of people, and some of them are part-time, and you don't really know what you're going to do, even if it is successful, now what? Now you deploy it, and how much utilization do you get? And then how do you justify continuing to maintain it and do anything with it? And if that's your proof point for bringing AI into your business, then what kind of proof point was that? It's just proof that it's just a distraction. You've really got to be on a path where 6 months in, especially if the timeline didn't go quite as well as you wanted it to, and how many timelines go better than we want them to, um, you're gonna you're not supposed to like literally laugh about that, Chris. I mean, it is laughable to think, right? How many projects have you been in that were excitedly ahead of their schedule? Um, but the but the but the point is, when it's 6 months in and it's tough, you're back remembering, no, wait a minute. We are totally able to transform our business with this, because if we can do this and this and this, which is what we're on, we get to there. But if these things are 6 months and now I'm still just trying to figure out if it's a little bit funnier to interact with customers on the website with a chatbot that is more, more friendly than the way, what is that? How do I actually get anywhere with that? And that's why this notion of only 5%, was it? Keep me correct or honest here with these numbers. 5% of these pilots are actually successful and go all the way to production. Well, no wonder, right? If of course, I'm sure that more than 5% of them were tied to real business value. They had other issues we talked about, but I bet a bunch of them weren't, because I get this even from our customers. They get all excited about Krista, like, wow, this is amazing. Let's do something completely random with it. Like, what? Yeah. Why don't we do, like, wait, isn't your business about this? And wouldn't like a significant revenue increase occur if you did this? And where are all your costs? Where's the velocity of your business constraint? Where's the, oh, no, let's do this. Okay, well, we've started, by the way, being more, we can't be prescriptive, because again, we are the ones who say we don't know your business and our product needs to learn your business. And that's why we are so into these other types of AI. But the point I'm making is, we need customers who are ready to sit down and really prove to us that their starting point with Krista is a meaningful one if it works. Because if it works and you say, okay, and now what? Well, we got to go all the way back to the beginning, right? With that. And we've had some of those. And they're really surprising when you think, okay, well, even if this went well, what was going to happen? Well, it would have went well. But it didn't mean you kept going. So the notion, and also in the paper, is this whole notion of, wait a minute. In fact, it's identified as one of the myths, right? It's like, wait a minute, we're not using GenAI in transforming organizations. We're using GenAI to do a bunch of science projects and random stuff that, even if it works, is actually not particularly aligned to transforming the business. Why not, right? We don't have the money. No one has the money well, especially because it's even the opportunity cost. You're doing stuff that's not aligned to getting you toward a transformation. You're not being thoughtful about it. It's not even the dollars you have to spend on it. It's the time you waste that others in your market are being more thoughtful. That's where I would be nervous, right? I mean, look, we're a software company and AI is disrupting how you build software quite a bit. At this point in time, we have no manual testing. Our manual testers are running many, many screens that are all having AI run our manual test plan. And of course, we have automated tests that run completely headless. But these folks show up at work and all the manual tests are already run, and they're now looking at the results. That's a completely different thing that we were capable of doing even just 4 months ago.
Right.
So
The
when you
article
think
calls
about,
out
yeah,
the
go ahead.
article calls out the value of back office versus the website and the marketing stuff. And
Right.
that's us. We look at our back office. Where are we spending time? Where are our resources? So testing and QA of software is as far back office as you can get.
Oh, totally. And
And
yet, it's the most fundamental part of the velocity of a software company is how fast can you test? So where did we focus, right? Of course, we're putting AI buddies in every one of our IDEs, and we're making sure our guys understand where the beginning and end and how to make sure all that good, lots of great stuff in there that's going to increase quality. There's going to be a bump in productivity. There's going to be it's great, right? Our DevOps team has all kinds of great stuff, but where do we go? I want you to do this now 10 times, and I'm literally 10 times faster than you currently do it today. And this is how we're going to get there, because that's where we are constrained. So I can deliver more software faster and I can deliver it at higher quality if I fully embrace how AI is going to transform our business. And by the way, if I don't, I'm going to deliver at a slower velocity than the next guy. And how could I possibly be the winner in the next 2 or 3 years if I am systemically slower than others around me? So we get it. It's happening to us too, right? Our own. It's funny. I had to tell somebody, one of our senior people, you remember, there's an adage out there in the market. AI is not going to take your job. Someone using AI is going to take your job. And that is actually the case, right? Now, some functions may need less net people in them, right? The number of people who do this job function over a year goes lower and lower. Very true. That's fine, because there's always other things. The world always adds job descriptions. It adds more than it removes, right? It's the job handbook has never gotten smaller from one year to the next. It hasn't. So we don't have to worry about the jobs that go away. We have to worry about, am I prepared for the job that is not yet in the book that is showing up next year? And with regard to how do I get my own team to do this, right? You've got to disrupt how you do things yourself. And you've got to find how you become a part of an unbelievably different way than we operate. If you're not, you become someone that is actually representing the wrong way that we need to operate. And that's not the place you want to be, right? And of course, I went all personal on you guys about how we work internally here at Krista. But the fundamental point is, we're saying to you guys the same things we're saying internally, and we're doing them internally, and we see some incredible results.
Yeah. Well, perfect. Yeah, I will. I'll include a link to the report. Thanks, guys, for the review. I'm also going to give some links to some of the case studies that we have that demonstrate real ROI. And yeah, they are operationally focused, workflows, but they address all of the things that we talked about today with the memory and the context and the integration and the human in the loop steps. So they're really, really great stories. Appreciate you guys hanging on, and until next time.